Hi, this is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and this is, well, it's the first of our, arts held hostage episodes, I guess, as many arts and cultural events, of course, are canceled. People are doing things online, and we're going to be doing that too as time goes by, lining up some things with various theater and performance companies to find out what they're doing while they can't do public performances. But one thing that we've always done in the Culture Crawl, and one thing that is a perfect fit for when you can't get out to see or hear some art, is to read some art. And I've always had authors on the Culture Crawl, and this is a perfect time to even do that a little bit more. And as luck would have it, a new book has come out that is right in the pocket, I think, for most people in Iowa who like sports and who like mysteries. And let me welcome Dave Bluder to the Culture Crawl. Dave, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
You've got a new book out entitled The Great Gamble. It's about sports gambling. And we'll talk about how that project came about and all the things that you've learned through that process in a minute. But first off, your last name is going to be familiar to most people. Your wife is Lisa Bluder, Iowa basketball coach. In my mind, you two probably lead one of the most go lifestyles of anybody anywhere. What's it like to have the Bluder household throttle down so fast?
It's great. My wife loves it, actually. I'm one that likes to get out, but she's just having a great time. We're having dinners together as a family, and she's just having a ball. So even though yesterday was supposed to be possibly the game in which they would have played for the Sweet 16, they thought there would be a 4 seed at the University of Iowa when the brackets came out, and now they're not playing. So it's a tough time, actually. And I feel sorry for her and the team and the seniors.
The seniors especially, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And they were playing, at least they were playing so well in the last week when they were practicing. But a lot of people have a lot of tough situations right now. So
The book is called The Great Gamble, and it's very timely right now. And I know that you had intended to debut it right as NCAA tourney season, the biggest betting time of the year, began, which of course did not happen. But even though sports betting and that in Iowa has just become legal, you've been working on this project for a long time.
I've been working on it for probably about 8.5, 9 years. And then it's also, very difficult. Part of that time was trying to get published, but I probably wrote it probably 10 times, I think. Used different editors, probably 3 different editors, one from the Iowa Writers Workshop, one from the Stanford Writers Workshop, and then some local folks that have been editing for years. And everybody has different ideas and thoughts. I spoke when I wanted to begin doing this, I started reading some of the craft books. And so I would read probably 7, 8, 9 books about how to, and then I started taking some of the classes in the summers of the Iowa Summer Writing Workshop. And so they bring in great authors and teachers around the world, actually, here at the University of Iowa. I started taking a lot of those classes, so that helped me over time. And then as we began to write this whole thing, professors and also other say, why don't you read these 3 books and try to get some ideas of what they're trying to do. And so it's been a process. And like I said, 8, 9 years, I probably could have gotten 2 PhDs.
you because of your connections in the sports world and your experience, this could have been a nonfiction book that you kind of documented what's going on and what you think might go on in sports betting, but you elected to write a fictional thriller. Tell me about the decision to do it that way.
I believe we really learn from story, and fact and fiction in life really are intertwined. I took a course in undergrad at Northern Iowa from a great English teacher, and he told me, an English professor, he told me you actually learn more from fiction than you will from nonfiction. And that always stuck with me. So When we read actually fiction, we learn a lot about what it's like to be in someone else's position. In fact, this whole book, we've spent a lot of time thinking about the Great Gatsby, and we came up with the term the Great Gamble, which is somewhat similar of our time. What was going on in the 20s, now what's going on now with gambling and all the other things we can do that might change what happens in the world. But the subtitle is At What Price? And that's more of, it's not necessarily a book about gambling and sports, but it's a book about what happens based upon a consequence that we make. There's an old Hungarian proverb that says, Adam took a bite of the apple and our teeth have hurt ever since. And that's what the book's really about. Being in the garden, there's one tree that Adam was not able to go to. He ended up going to that apple, made a mistake, and he had major consequences after that. In another scenario, for example, if you remember the movie Indecent Proposal with Demi Moore, she goes to Las Vegas trying to win back her mortgage payment for her dream house, she and her husband. And then she runs into Robert Redford, a billionaire, who says, I'll spend the night with you for $1 million. They agree to do that. And after that, things got really messy and really complicated and complex. So the book itself starts with a gentleman by the name of Jason Price. He's 18 years old. He is the top high school basketball recruit in the United States of America. And he is being recruited by hundreds and hundreds of different teams around the country. However, he has a mother that's single mother, dying of ovarian cancer. They live in a rundown apartment in Oak Park. They have no money to pay for her bills. They're going to get kicked out of the apartment. His high school coach wants him to go to UCLA, and if he goes to UCLA, the high school coach will be reciprocated with a condo in Florida. So he needs money, and there are all these agents that have been following him around, and he finds an agent that's kind of been bugging him. His name is Ricardo Perez. He's a cartel member from Mexico, but not the cartel members that we kind of think about. He's actually one that's a factual person, a nonfiction person, and he actually is sophisticated. He wears Armani suits. He wears a Rolex watch. He listens to classical music. He does yoga. Very different. He comes up to Jason and tells them that he's going to be the number one recruit in not only the number one recruit, but he'll be the number one pick in the NBA draft. He'll make millions and millions of dollars. In the meantime, he needs money. He gives him $30,000 after a discernment, and just on a handshake, by the way. And Jason takes it, making that decision like Demi Moore did or Adam did when he bit the apple. And then Jason comes back to him and says, last time you just beat Fenwick High School by 30, let's just make it 25 this time, a shaving of the points. So he actually does that. Then everything starts and falls apart for him.
The slippery slope.
Slippery slope. But then we have an interesting character. It's kind of like a Tarantino kind of movie, a Pulp Fiction kind of movie. There's two different kind of things going on at the same time, protagonists. You have an egocentric womanizer NBA referee by the name of Tim McMurray. And Tim also is doing some things illegally with Ricardo Perez. And so he is in the NBA. He's living a life of the paranormal and the occult, and he's in seances, and he lives a crazy life. And so these two things kind of combine with themselves. With a FBI investigation that leads to an international manhunt overseas, there's an iconic discovery in one of the United States major landmarks. There's a discovery of an investigation into what's called cryptos. The famous cryptos is an encryption that the FBI, NSA, and CIA are currently using. And they've been able to actually people have been able to break through two of the three components of cryptos. They haven't been able to break the third. So there's a whole different story about that within the novel as well. So there's a lot of complex things that are going on. There's artwork, there's stolen artwork, and this all leads to kind of like a story Marv Cook mentioned as one of the endorsements. It's a combination of Sicario meets Pulp Fiction.
Talking with Dave Bluder about his book that's been out for just a few weeks, The Great Gamble. And I know that you were scheduled to do a reading at Prairie Lights, but of course, all that stuff is kind of on hold. That'll be rescheduled in the future, I'm sure. One of the things that you were really able to do that is great for any first-time author is you were able to get this book into the hands of some pretty high-powered celebrities and get some great endorsements. You mentioned Marv Cook, but the list of people who've read and responded positively to the book is really impressive.
It's very, very impressive, and it's very humbling as well. We had Tom Arnold, for example. We have Senator Bill Bradley. Senator Bradley, actually Jim Leach, Congressman Jim Leach actually does the epilogue. And if anybody wants to even just read a beautiful piece, Jim wrote a beautiful piece about internet gambling and the internet bill that he and Senator Bradley put together, which is actually was demolished as soon as he left office. And that's a whole story in itself. We had Tom Davis, Tom Arnold, Bob Bowlesby, Dan Gable, Ann Myers Drysdale, Tim McClellan, who is a baseball umpire, was a baseball umpire, did the Sammy Sosa corked bat. He was behind the plate for that, as well as George Brett's pine tar. He was behind the plate for that one as well. Melissa Isaacson, she was with the Chicago Tribune and then ESPN. She just wrote a wonderful book. She was the beat writer for the Chicago Bears when they won the Super Bowl. She also was the beat writer for the Chicago Bears when they won the Super Bowl, and she was beat writer for the Bulls, and she's a phenomenal writer herself. So we just got enormous. Dan Matheson, for example. Dan was director of operations for the New York Yankees. He has 4 World Series rings that he'll wear around. He now is the international writing program. Oh, for example, Christopher Merrill. He is the director of the international writing program
At the university. Mm-hmm.
He just wrote a beautiful piece, and he is an incredibly prominent professor here at the university. So, yeah, it's been fun and exciting, and it's been interesting.
As you did the research for the book, obviously you come from, you're connected to the sports world, but as you were giving us the little synopsis of what the book was about, there was national security, there was art thieves, international espionage. Tell me a little bit about the research that you did in some of the other areas.
It was kind of fun while you develop your first draft and have a plot in your mind. It continues to grow. So, a lot of people sit down and try to write and have a plot set out. Shop doesn't work that way, and so I kind of just sat down with an idea in my head. The player, and then the NBA ref, and then there's all other things that are involved, which includes sports as well as other areas. And that just kind of developed over time. So as you read, as you learn things, as you pick up things, throughout the years or through time, you're reading a story. You said, well, that'd be interesting to try to incorporate that, intertwine that within the plot somehow. So it changes immensely as things go on. And then what's really interesting is we actually changed the ending a few times. And we changed the beginning, multiple times, but it's kind of interesting. We actually have a couple different endings for this, and maybe over time we'll try to maybe release a different ending, for example.
I have, going inside baseball here a little bit with my books because the audience knows that I've published a couple of novels as well. I
Mhm.
have some scenes that did not make it into the book, but that
Mhm.
I put on the website that people can find and get informed a little bit of some things that happen off stage in the novels, but then they can read those themselves, which is kind of fun little Easter eggs.
They're very much so. I did a scene that somewhat of an erotic scene, and I'm kind of glad that we took it out. But that's another whole other subject. But
If I would have known it was that kind of thing, I would have dressed differently. So speaking of Easter eggs, anything in there that people from Iowa, Hawkeye fans, might recognize, scenes, characters, anything that people from around here might particularly appreciate?
absolutely. In fact, since Jason Carson is the top recruit in the U.S., he wants to end up wanting to stay close to his mother because she's dying. So he ends up um, unbelievably going to the University of Iowa. So while he's there, his roommate is a gentleman by the name of Brandon Sellers, and Brandon's crazy. He's from Los Angeles. He's the first time he's here. He plays baseball for Iowa, and everything that comes out of his mouth is from the Urban Dictionary. So he is Mr. Slang, and he is fun. He has parties. He's got um, people coming over to his room all the time, and actually he's a bookie himself, so he's really an interesting character, and he provides a lot of disturbing destruction for Jason as well, but he's a great deal of fun. So there's a lot of University of Iowa iconic places that are kind of discovered when you read the book. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's also a the gentleman that actually created Kryptos encryption lives on an island. Believe it's Chesapeake Island, on the Atlantic, the northern part of Atlantic. And this is a true story. He lives on this island. He has a major barn. He does sculpture. And there's a sculptor piece of the encryption, which is outside um, FBI headquarters in Langley, Virginia. And this is a piece that he did that kind of incorporates some of the numbers and the letters that help encrypt that the FBI and CIA use. There is a piece of sculpture, a Kryptos piece of sculpture at the University of Iowa. And it's kind of interesting if people want to try to see it. It's a beautiful piece, and I believe it's in the one of the buildings at Iowa. I haven't actually seen it yet, but somebody just told me about it.
You talked about the character of Jason Carson, the basketball player who comes from a poor background and ends up making questionable decisions for the gain of him being able to take care of his questionable bad decisions for good reasons, I guess is how we would
Mm-hmm.
put that. Where do you land on college athletes being paid?
I don't think they should be, but that's kind of how my about it. They are receiving education, they are receiving a stipend as well. I think if once you start down that road, it's just a slippery slope.
The book is The Great Gamble, and it's available from Ice Cube Press, Steve Semken's label. Steve's been a guest on the show many times, and people are familiar with him and all the different kinds of work that his publishing company puts out. It's also available on the platforms, but if people want an autographed copy from you, they should probably order right from Ice Cube Press, right?
Yes, right now Amazon is back ordered. You can also pick something up at curbside service at Prairie Lights, the Barnes and Noble. You could get on Amazon through their ebook and get that downloaded immediately. But Ice Cube Press will get something out to you within 2 days. But a lot of the local bookstores do have it right now. But Amazon, for some reason, is back ordered because they've got a lot of other issues going on, as we all.
A lot of extra traffic headed that way all of a sudden for some reason.
Right.
Well, Dave, it's been a great pleasure to get to talk to you about the book. You've had a great launch, even though you aren't being able to do the in-person stuff that a lot of times an author does about the time the book comes out. And are there any other writing projects in the future?
I'm currently working on an international political thriller right now that actually I've started about 2, 3 years ago, and want to get back to that as soon as I can.
Well, again, you can order the book from Amazon if you're ready to wait for a while, but better to buy it from one of the local bookstores, curbside service delivery, as Dave said, or of course, you can order a copy from icecubepress.com. Dave, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck with this book, and good luck with more in the future, too.
My pleasure, Dennis. It's always a great pleasure to listen to you, and as well as your incredible station. I absolutely adore it.
Well, thanks very much. We're just trying to keep the good music going and uplift people during some pretty stressful times. And we appreciate those good comments. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dennis.
You can hear the Culture Crawl throughout the week on the radio, mornings at 10:20, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcasting app. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.